This here is starter that I was just using. It could be considered discard because I haven't fed it for about a week, and now in order just to keep it active, if you're not baking, you would feed it again. And like I said, it's that 1 to 1 to 1. Well, what I would truly do is I would probably dump part of that in the garbage and then feed it and then just put it in the fridge until I'm ready to bake again in a week, when I'll feed it right before I bake. Because you always want to keep some in your fridge, but if you just keep feeding it equal parts each week, you're going to end up with so much that you don't know what to do with it. As I said in the beginning, the scale is one of the items that I consider a must-have for making sourdough. So the first thing we need to do is to get our sourdough starter active. Right now, this has been in the fridge for about a week. There's what's called hooch on top. It's just liquid. All I'm going to do is stir that in. And then I'm going to pour some of this into this clean jar just because I'm trying to control the amount. So I zero that out, and I'm going to put in about 150 grams of each. Everyone does their starter a little bit different. I tend to do equal parts of starter, water, and flour. Because I cook on a regular, bake on a a consistent manner. So if I'm not going to do it as often, sometimes people feed it a little bit more flour. So I'm going to put about 150 grams into this jar. And then most recipes call for filtered water. We do not have like a fridge filter. So I have read that you could just take normal tap water and let it sit out for a day, and then all the chlorine dissipates. I don't even know if that's the right word. Anyway, and then I put the bottle in the fridge. So tear it, clear it out, another 150 grams. And if I get a little too much, it's okay. If I don't get, or if I get a lot, you just pour some out. Then I'm going to put in 150 grams of flour. A wide mouth jar is also one of those items that is a must-have in my mind, or some sort of a container that gives you space as well as a spot to stir. And there we go. It's a little bit over 150. That is okay. Now I'm just going to stir that up. And then once it's all stirred up, I will just cover it loosely with a cover and let it sit on the counter for like overnight, or usually in 4 hours it's bubbly enough. So sometimes I feed my starter in the morning, and then when I get home from work, I will go through the process of making the dough. This happens to be an evening, so it'll sit here overnight, and then in the morning when I get up, I will be ready to put it together. So you can kind of see what it's like. And then that should be good. I'm just gonna take a knife and scrape it off the spatula and cover it. Here, and this stuff, you do not want to put a lot of it down your sink drain, so kind of scrape it off good, and then just rinse it good. And then what I will do is just set the cover on loosely, and then I can see here is about where it is. Some people actually mark their jars. I do not, but you can see there are no bubbles in it. So tomorrow morning when we come back, this will be all bubbly and it will be considered active. Okay, good morning. Our starter rested all night, and if you remember, it was about here last night, and now it has doubled. And you can see how liquidy and bubbly it is. This is considered active starter, meaning you see all the bubbles in there. So that is what's going to get our bread going. Okay, so you need a bowl, put it on your scale, clear out your scale, and everything is done in grams, and it's just more precise, and especially when it comes to flour, if you're measuring it out by a cup of flour, if you shake it, if you just lightly scoop, it's all going to measure differently. So they really encourage everything in grams, and you'll find most recipes are written that way. So I'm going to start out with 195 grams of water. Just dump. And if it's like 1 or 2 grams over, it is not a big deal. There it's actually 197, so it's a couple grams over. And then I'm gonna put 110 grams of starter in. Clear my scale out, dump it in there. An active starter will float. That is also a float test. If you're wondering if your starter is active, you can put it in water and see if it floats. Can you see that it is floating? And this, I ended up dumping in 119 grams of starter. Okay, then you mix that up. This is called a Danish whisk, I believe. A lot of people use it in sourdough, not a must-have. Sometimes it annoys me more just trying to clean it afterwards, but you just mix that together. And a spatula works just fine. So now what you do is you add your flour. This recipe calls for 375 grams of flour. I do about 100 grams to start out with, and then to get my oil combined. Not all sourdough recipes, actually the majority of them don't use oil. When I first started making sourdough, I tried many recipes and finally found this one, and this one works the best for me. You can look, try, experiment, and they say once you find a recipe that works for you, stick with that one. So that happens to be mine. And when I've read, there's something about oil and flour combining, so that's why I kind of give that a little head start. So clear out my scale. The amount of flour doesn't matter. I just try to do 100 for math, so then I know when I add the second amount of flour, how much I have to add. I am using all-purpose flour. Clear that out. Oil is 18 grams, which is probably just a couple tablespoons. Right on. Okay, so then I use my whisk or spatula, mix that up. And this is where the more flour I end up with, the harder it gets to mix it all up with that. So then I do move to a spatula. But I'm gonna let that sit for just a couple minutes. When you start to read recipes about making sourdough, you are gonna hear people who do all their mixing and then a step or two later add their salt. I add it all at the same time, and I've had just as good luck doing it now, and it's easier for me to get it all to mix in. You will also read some people use different kinds of flour. I have played with that, from all-purpose flour to bread flour to a combination. The written recipe I have, I believe, kind of talks about a combo, but today I'm just going to use all-purpose flour for the whole thing, and you will see at the end what it turns out like. And sometimes what I'll do when I get to adding all the flour, I will do half all-purpose, half bread. So when you start to make it, just play with it and see what works with you. I've also done some wheat flour, and with that, and the end stage rising, you might have to let it rise a little bit longer with the wheat flour. Okay, so that sat a little bit. So now I'm gonna add the rest of my flour, and I'd already put in 100 grams, so I have to remember that little math. And this is easy. If I end up with too much, it piles in, so I can easily scoop out. And this is a plain sourdough that I'm making. Okay, so there is 274. So I needed 375 and I'd done 100 before. And then you use fine grain sea salt. And I just need 7 grams of that, which seems like a lot when you're pouring it in, but if you put it into a teaspoon or a tablespoon, it is not. Okay, 7. So then I'm gonna, scrape my spatula off so I don't get a whole bunch of extra starter in there. And I'm gonna just mix that up. And if I could use that whisk if I would like, I can use a spatula. Combine it all. It's going to be, as they say, dry and shaggy. And that is what we are going for. And this is the stage when I'm doing all my ingredients that if I want to do mix-ins like jalapenos and cheese or walnuts and craisins, I mix it all in at this stage. There are some people who will roll it out and add it later. This works for me to add it all in the very, very beginning, and it gets evenly distributed. If I do cheese, I cut it up in tiny little squares. I have tried to use shredded cheese and that just disappears. Okay, as you can see, dry, shaggy. I try to kind of get those crumbles in there. Okay, you see? So then I'll scrape this off again. Now we are going to let it rest. It is gonna rest for 2 hours, but every half an hour, I'm gonna do what's called a stretch and fold. So when it rests, I just cover it with, you can just set a light cover on top. I happen to have these bowl covers like this. It just sits on top. I've also, at one time in Target, there were these bowl covers like this. So whatever you've got, you just set it on there. I look at the clock, anywhere from 20 minutes to 45 minutes, I will go in and do a stretch and fold. So I will get back to you at this point. The other thing is, come winter, sometimes I set it on my top of my stove with the light on from the microwave just for a little warmth, or I have turned the light on inside the oven and set it in there. It is summertime right now, so the house is a little bit warmer, so the process goes fast. So we'll be back in about a half an hour. Okay, here is a loaf where I am doing mix-ins right at this stage of mixing it all together. So this has walnuts and craisins in, and it has a 1/2 to 3/4 cup of each. Again, it depends on which size recipe you're using. I'm using a bigger recipe because I'm gonna make 2 smaller loaves out. But as you can see, it just gets mixed in with everything.
Start over. Okay.
It is time for stretching and folding. You can see it's shaggy. So with stretching and folding, you literally just pull some up, push it to the middle, turn your bowl. And you'll see as we do this each time, it gets much smoother. And I think they say like, I don't know, 6 times or something. But again, it's not gonna make or break the recipe. So did that, you can see it's a little less shaggy. That's the plain one. And I also have one going here with the craisins in, and that one. And I did use some wheat flour in this one, so it's not quite as smooth as the plain one, but just stretch it up, fold it down, and kind of make it into another little bowl. That's good for now. Cover it up again for another half hour. Okay, the second stretch and fold, you can see that it has rested and it's stretches easier than round 1. That's 3, 4, 5, 6 little times back into a ball. I'll let that rest. Here's the wheat one. This, like I said, is not usually as soft with the mix-ins. Okay, there you go, and then we will let it rest again. Okay, stretch and fold number 3. You can see it's getting smoother. There you go, a nice little ball. And this one is also getting smooth. And you can see much more pliable as it's resting. Okay, there we go. One more to go, and then we'll let it rest for a few hours. Okay, we are on our final number 4, stretch and fold. And then after this, we're gonna let it sit for 2 to 4 plus hours. I have found that it's, I guess a little longer, it's a little bit easier at the end to form. But if I do this in the evening, sometimes I only have like 2 hours. So that will be ready. And I probably will end up letting the one with the craisins and the wheat flour sit a little longer in the end, but it's looking good. So our final stretch and fold. And then we will check back probably in a couple hours and look at them and see what they're looking like. Now time to form our dough. You can see it is nice and airy, and I think, yeah, they're both good, ready to go. It has been a little over 3 to 4 hours, but again, if it was less, that would be fine. So I'm gonna go with the plain first, and you will see here I have a bowl, and then I have special baskets that are designed for sourdough. These are nice to haves, not necessary, because what you can do, you can use a bowl for this next step. I have an oval colander I use sometimes if I'm choosing to do an oblong loaf. So if you do a bowl, just line it with a cotton towel, and I use this only for sourdough. You can see it gets spots on it from some of the ingredients, and I just wash it, and that's what it's used for. So scrape it out of the bowl. I have washed the counter. I always wash it down really good to make sure there's nothing on it. And then I try use minimal to no flour. So you stretch it out, and here again, there's different versions, different ways people do it, but I'm just going to form it into a little ball. One more kind of like stretch and fold. And then I'm gonna flip it over, and then you can see it's a little sticky, so I'm gonna sprinkle just a small amount of flour on it. And that's just normal all-purpose flour. So what you do here is you wanna get it tight. You kind of draw it near you, turn it a little, draw it near you, turn it a little, pull it near you. And then you can kind of just spin it. You're just trying to get all the fibers kind of stretched and nice and tight. And then there, and it is starting to rip, and that is totally fine. So it doesn't feel sticky. Because I'm putting it in that cloth one, I'm gonna put a small layer of flour on the top, and then you just pick it up. This is the bottom. It goes top down. Take my towel, and I just cover it up. Tuck it in like a little baby. And then we're gonna put that in like a Target sack and put it in the fridge until baking day. Now, let me quick do an oval one. This here is a larger recipe, because what I like to do is then I make 2 smaller oval loaves. So I'm gonna just cut this. One basket's bigger than the other, so I kind of made 2 different sizes. But here again, what I'm gonna do, this one now I'm going for more of an oval shape. So I kind of pressed it out, and then I'd read something about shoulder foot, and then for the oval, kind of roll that down to make an oval loaf. And again, then I'm just gonna pull it towards me a little bit to get it tight. Oh, that's probably a little more flour than I would like, but it'll be fine. And then I'm going to pick that up, same thing, put it in the basket, and then same thing with the second one. Stretch it out. As you see, this one has the inclusions that I built in from the very beginning, where some people add their inclusions at this point actually. But I've had luck doing it the other way, so I'm sticking with that. Kind of roll it to tighten it up. Try to push those in a little bit. And this one feels a little bit stickier, so I too am going to add a little bit of flour to that top. And now these are going to go in the fridge for anywhere from 12 hours to, I've read different things, but easily 2 days. Like today is Saturday afternoon. I am planning on baking these, I think, Monday morning. So then in the basket, and then I will wrap them up with bags here and show you that. Okay, I got a bag. I just literally put it in there and tuck it under, and that's going to go in the fridge until baking day. And even the one with the towel, they all just get tucked away. And I'm able to bake 3 at a time in the oven. So there we go. And it's baking day. On the counter here, you see different pans. This here is an Dutch oven, cast iron, very heavy pan. This is what I first baked in because that is what I had. It was tricky. My bottoms burned. I would lift it part way and put it on a rack, and that seemed to help. But that is what many people bake in. But after reading a lot, I discovered a lot of people bake in these lightweight granite roasters. They're like the turkey roaster, but a smaller version. It's not the giant turkey roaster. These are my all-time favorite. I do not bake in the Dutch oven anymore. So a pan of some sort with a cover is a must-have. Okay, so the other thing is you'll see the silicone mat on the bottom. You need something to put your bread on. This is not a must-have, but I really like them. If you don't use this, you would use parchment. So you take the bread that's been in the fridge. It is time to come out, and like I said, it's in the fridge for 12 hours to up to, I think, 3 days, they say is okay. The longer it sits, I think the better it is as far as if you watch gluten or those types of things. So you can see it got bigger. So now I'm just gonna flip it over, because this is the bottom, onto my mat. There we go. Now this is the point you can get fancy with the designs on the top. You do need to make a slice in order to allow it to expand. I do not get fancy. I just slice one line. This is a razor, not a must-have, but very nice to have. When I first did it, I just did it with a knife, but this does make it really easy. So when I slice, I pretty much start close to the bottom, and I do it kind of over on the side, and then go edge to edge, and you can see it's pretty deep. I'd say maybe 1/4 of an inch. And that is gonna allow the bread space to expand. And then that goes inside my pan. Cover it up. And I will do one more. They also come in oval, and oval breads, I baked them on the round ones, it doesn't matter. So there, that one looks, this one was a little smaller, but same thing, upside down, slice from the bottom, across, and there we go. And that is going to go into the oval pan. And then we're gonna put it in the oven for 450 degrees for 15 minutes covered. And then I turn the oven down to 425 for 30 to 40 minutes. It kind of depends on the size of the loaf. Some recipes have you preheat your ovens. I tried all those things. For me, I just put them in here in the cold. And then some have you remove the covers, and I've had more luck just leaving the covers on. So we will check back when it is all baked up. Okay, and it is done baking, and as you see, I managed to bake 3 in my oven, and my alarms went off. Beautiful. Oven spring on that one. That's the round one. It's always like, ooh, what's it gonna look like? Ready? These are a little smaller. That's beautiful. And then my third one. There we go. And those are a little smaller loaves. So now we will take them out and let them cool for a couple hours. The bread is done. As you can see, it looks very different. It's because this one has a little wheat flour in it, but I also think the add-ins change color. The walnuts change it a little bit, and the craisins. So nice and bubbly, one likes that. The crumb, the crust, and it is squishy. Okay, this item is not a must-have, but it was something that I got that I absolutely love because I make so much bread. Slicing sourdough bread is kind of tricky, or gets hard, but I'm gonna slice them up and we will look at the inside. Okay, the inside of it looks beautiful, and you'll always see them squish it. Nice air holes, nice and soft. This slicer, I'm allowed to adjust the thickness. This is a little bit thin, but we're gonna use it for BLTs, so that will be perfect.